The most challenging part of the final stage is balance, knowing what to refine, what to leave untouched, and when it's time to stop. In this final lesson of the Wooden Door with Floral Accents series, you'll learn how to add final details and highlights that enhance the illustration without overwhelming it. We'll carefully refine the window grille, place highlights on the door and smaller elements, and adjust contrast so the composition feels complete and cohesive. If you're here at the final lesson, you've already done the work. Leave a like as a quiet reminder of that, subscribe if it feels right, and let's move on to the final touches. Start the detailing phase by working on the window grille, which holds a noticeable place in the composition. Create a separate layer for it. There is no need to overwork the details here, just light, simplified hints of the shape. For the grille, any gray shade will work, for example, one from the warm gray palette. Use brush number 2 at a small size to draw the thin lines comfortably. The goal here is to keep the grille light and sketchy. Start by loosely defining its overall outline with quick, easy strokes. Placing small dots at the intersections helps the lines feel more alive. You can use quick shape for part of the lines, but avoid relying on it too much, or the grille will feel rigid and mechanical. It's important to keep the contour light and lively. For the top scroll, place a few guide points first. Mark the center and where the element ends. This makes it much easier to shape larger forms. Shape the scroll with short, broken segments. Keep the tone light for now. The larger forms can always be darkened later to add more emphasis. On the side sections of the grille, the outline can be even more simplified. Light hints in the form of dots or broken lines are enough to suggest the shape of the scrolls. Keep the lines light, as if they are gently fading away. Following the same approach as the top section, draw the scrolls at the bottom of the grille as well. Break complex shapes and lines into segments here too. At this stage, the base drawing of the grille is complete. Take a deep dark shade and use it to highlight the important parts. Add small dots at the intersections so the metal elements feel connected and the grille gains more expression. Even though wrought iron details are very thin, they offer a lot of visual information to work with. Using dots, short strokes, and fine lines helps create a rich, lively result. Shadows are not the only thing to focus on. Light accents matter too. Highlights are coming up next. Move forward in small, careful steps and keep an eye on the character of the scrolls. Move on to the inner lines of the grille. There is no need to be precise about their number. Capturing the overall rhythm is enough. Add small accent dots at the ends of the lines to suggest the joints, then move on to drawing the horizontal lines. Create a separate layer for the highlights above all the others. Choose the lightest shade possible, close to white, set the brush to 4%, and lightly go over the grill with soft strokes. Short, light strokes really bring out the light on a dark surface. Just be careful not to overuse the highlights. And don't forget about the accent dots. When working with traditional markers, thin light accents like these are sometimes added with a white gel pen. In this case, the same effect is recreated digitally. Choose a pure white color and apply it to the outer elements of the grill to strengthen the highlights. Keep adding highlights to other objects in the scene. It is acceptable to introduce highlights that don't appear in the reference if they make the image more expressive. Draw a light base for the numbers here and add a couple of small dots on the wall too. On the surface of the dark panel, mark a small decorative frame. The same approach can be used across the entire artwork, but the main focus of the composition is the door. Overall, the illustration is almost finished, though the door still needs a bit of highlight refinement. Bright white highlights on the door would feel out of place, so it's better to start with softer tones. Begin with a beige shade and only then move on to lighter highlights. This tone lays gently on the door surface and keeps the highlight from looking too sharp. When working with traditional markers, colored highlights are added with colored pencils. A similar approach is used here. The door is one of the more complex parts of the composition, so it deserves a bit more careful attention here. If the door were more simple in structure, there would be no need to return to it at this stage. Brush number 2 is used here again, although dyeing brush could work as well. With light pressure, brush number 2 does the job just fine. Now it's time to move on to a lighter shade. Small bright highlights placed on the corner points look especially expressive. It's important not to overdo the highlights. Keep them more concentrated in the upper area and let them gradually fade and become barely noticeable toward the bottom. Return to the grill layer and select a warm gray shade. Using the same brush, start forming the door handles. Their design is quite unique and requires a bit more attention. Start by placing 2 dots to show where the handles are attached to the door. Use broken lines to sketch the handle's shape, then draw the right one the same way. Choose a dark color to draw the shadows. The placement of shadows and highlights depends on how much volume the handles should have. Shadows help give them more thickness, and this part of the process can stay loose and intuitive. Now switch to the highlight layer and choose an almost white or pure white shade. Add a few highlights to the door handles. Highlights can also be added to the plans. They give them more clarity and detail, and accents like these always catch attention. At this stage, it becomes clear that the door frame needs a bit more contrast against the wall. Use dyeing brush and a warm gray shade to emphasize the white frame against the yellow wall. A strong contrast is not necessary, but a few thoughtful accents make a difference. Switch to the wall fill layer to work with the pipe. There is no need to clearly identify its exact color in the reference. Simply choose a cool gray blue and draw the pipeline with a quick shape stroke. Use a cool dark shade to add some variation to the pipeline so it doesn't feel flat or monotonous. Even if it looks uniform in the reference, making it more lively always works better. The pipeline should not break suddenly. If needed, soften any hard edges with the eraser. Do the same at the bottom pipe, allowing it to softly disappear into the background. Pick a brown color and move to the door layer to work on the doormat. Don't aim for a perfectly solid fill. Leaving a few gaps in the fill makes it look more lively and natural. Now it's time to add the numbers. You can use the same brush from the line work or go with fine tip or brush number 2. Switch to the top layer to draw the numbers. If needed, emphasize them with a few extra lines in this area. Take the dark purple used earlier on the mailbox and add the remaining details. The more dots, accents, and both abstract and defined details are added, the more engaging and visually rich the artwork becomes. It opens up more areas that invite the viewer to pause and explore. Turn off the reference and review the final image to see what might still need adjusting. If you want to strengthen the yellow tones of the wall, switch to the layer with the yellow wall fill, choose a more saturated shade, and add extra layers of yellow using broad tip or broad tip grunge brush. Sometimes the new color no longer covers the previous strokes. That's because this yellow is lighter than the strokes below. These brushes behave like traditional markers. Light colors cannot go over dark ones. Even though this isn't how classic markers usually work, using a separate layer for a few light yellow accents can work well here. The left pot looks a bit flat. Take a dark brown and mark the shadow with a single stroke. Just make sure you're working on the same layer where this pot was painted, the door layer. Support the other pots with light shadows as well. Without shadows, the shape feels simpler and less expressive. Strengthening the shadows on the door will add a stronger sense of volume. On the layer where the yellow was applied to the wall, add a delicate brown tone to suggest a possible reflected color from the brown pot. This reflection is mostly suggested rather than real, but small color notes like this make the artwork feel more painterly. Apply the same color near the other brown elements on the wall to emphasize their influence on a surface that initially appears flat and uniform. Markers are often seen as a graphic material, but they work beautifully in a painterly way too. It all depends on what you want to achieve. You can see a warm orange nuance on the surface of the door in the reference. Choose a tone from the yellow-red palette, go to the door layer, and softly introduce it over the door surface. The door layer should still accept this color. If it doesn't, Add a new layer and apply it with soft, subtle touches. At this stage, the illustration is finished. Finishing is really about knowing when to stop. Work in small steps, avoid overworking the details, and keep checking where the focus of the artwork is. Pause from time to time, look at the illustration as a whole, and ask yourself whether each new accent truly adds something. Often, that brief moment of reflection is what tells you the drawing is already complete. The value of this series isn't only in the finished image, but in the way your artistic thinking has expanded along the way. If this way of thinking resonates with you, you're welcome to subscribe. Was this illustration process clear and engaging for you? How challenging did it feel? And would you be interested in more series like this? I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. And if there is a shared interest in continuing, we'll meet again in the future videos.